It's another Manly Monday, and this Manly Monday, we're talking about awkwardness from a particular male perspective. Now, everybody feels awkward, and that's the point. Everybody feels awkward at times, but in my conversations with my one-on-one clients, if you want to sign up for a session, fill out the form, the Leanna Cares form below. But there's been a lot of conversations about awkwardness and being awkward, and I've noticed this belief that some people are just naturally confident and good at conversations, and other people are awkward and it's innate. And it's not. And everybody has areas they're awkward with. Everybody has times they're feeling more awkward than others. And everybody ends up in awkward conversations. And I mean, part of what contributes to the awkwardness is you constantly second guessing every instinct you have, which I think maybe girls are trained to lean into, but also with girls' socialization, it's seen as more feminine to be quiet and passive. It's considered more masculine to be loud and active, and I don't think that helps anybody personally, because introverted guys are some of my favorite people. But let's do the help support this channel. I finally have the new Eileen did a new help support this channel. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Cares session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. We've got 2 more to make our goal for the past 2 weeks. And then the GoFundMe is right there too. 90DD1 for the Men's Group. Links are all in the description box below, so don't worry about remembering it. The Benz Group, is we brought in, it's up to 3 sessions funded now. We're funded for 3 weeks, so yay, come the fall, we'll be able to hit the ground running. Keep that coming in if you can afford it and feel so inclined. This is some of the stuff we're going to be covering, because it is a uniquely challenging place for guys who feel awkward, because there's a lot of media, especially like YA novels, told from, Twilight is sort of the biggest example for me. Is I remember reading Twilight, and I'd read out portions to people and they said, "You made that up." It's like, no, that's actually the writing in the book. Because there are parts, angsty teenage Bella, and, it's, oh, she knew he'd never be interested in her. And obviously, if that were true, there's no story. So where I come from, that's bad writing. Because she didn't know, she suspected, or she feared. But that's the teenage girl mindset. Perception is reality. Oh, I know they hate me, or I know that. Now, we don't get nearly the same media with awkward guys. It's always, there was this movie back in the day called Weird Science. I think it was called that, where 2 science whiz students made a sexy woman. Or it's something like Stranger Things, where, the awkward guys, girls end up, at least in Stranger Things, everybody's kind of normal, except for Steve. Steve has cool guy hair, right? I like Steve. But even he, is humbled and goes through things. Stranger Things is a really, really good show that way, even though, it's superpowers and the occult and science fiction. And then there's, the only other character I can think of that kind of deals with awkward guy is Huey from The Boys. He's sort of overwhelmed, and he's, because he's involved with Starlight, and you never, so far, you're never quite sure whether she's kind of using him or not, and he doesn't know how to impress her. That's a a major element, but you don't see as much of that. You tend to see the nerdy guy who's kind of clueless. And so there's no media role models for guys who are awkward, and then in their personal lives they just get these platitudes like, go out and talk to people, just, suck it up. Well, that's not helpful. It's, what do you do when you feel awkward? And I relate to it from a different way, but dealing with part of the great thing about doing Two Women Talking is you see how different I am from girly girls. And so, at least Song and I have certain common things we watch, or one of us makes the other watch so we can talk about it. And one or both of us is probably going to have a somewhat painful experience. And I mean, dealing with, watching the Barbie movie, part of that experience for me was dealing with the fact that Barbie was always this ideal that I did compare myself to. And even though, you tell yourself it's not real, the thing that was so cool about Superman back in the day, and they do some of it on Superman and Lois, which is why I like the show, but the Chris Reeve Superman, right? Or SpiderMan. SpiderMan's a really good example of this, that we used to have that thing where mild-mannered Peter Parker, like everyman Peter Parker, everyman Clark Kent, would pine after this woman and be awkward around her, and she didn't know he was Superman, or she didn't know he was Spider-Man. And I always took that as a metaphor for normal guy needs the opportunity for a woman to get to know him so she can see his superpowers. But how do you do that in a world where if you're awkward, you get labeled creepy? That's a good question. And, I think that's part of the fascination with guys like, say, Pete Davidson, who, I mean, if I can think of a poster boy for awkward bordering on creepy, it's him. And yet he's always with some beautiful woman or another. Now, I mean, his dating tallies are up there with Taylor Swift's. So, he's very good at attracting women, but possibly not necessarily making relationships work. Now, it could be the women he goes for as well. Now, that is a big part of it. You want to look for people who are understanding and okay with someone being awkward. Not everyone, especially not every woman, is gonna be like that. There's this belief that women are nurturers and understanding and have this inherent understanding of emotion and kindness. And no. A lot of women have this "you get it away" reaction because they're feeling awkward. So when a guy is awkward, it's like, oh my God, the guy's supposed to not be awkward. He's supposed to know what to do. He doesn't know what to do. What do I do? Now I'm feeling so awkward. Oh, you're weird. I'm going to get on the whole, annoying, creepy later. But it's just a get it away. This is too weird, anxiety. Yeah. And that's one thing that's really eroded. The understanding of how much anxiety is healthy or okay or expected in certain circumstances, right? The book of all things that made me personally aware of this was The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan, published in 1963, I think. Some of these books, The Deuxième Sex by Simone de Beauvoir, The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan, The Bell Jar, stuff like this. They all get reduced to a handful of lines. And the most insightful part, if you read the whole book, gets lost because it's complicated and nuanced. And the feminine mystique is known for this sort of sense, the feminine mystique, the title concept is that there's this sense of lack of fulfillment, this sense of discontent that women were experiencing, middle class white women primarily, were experiencing, and they didn't quite know why. It was just, women were so discouraged from public participation, being in the public space, that, well, they were bored and unfulfilled, and they're supposed to feel happy being a housewife, but they didn't. What's wrong? But Friedan, who was college educated and then had issues where she was a writer, freelance writer for like magazines and stuff like that. And the older she got, the more people started going, well, shouldn't you be getting married by now? And so they were, in the way she tells it, more hesitant to hire her because this is getting weird. What's wrong with her that she's not married? Seems so long ago, right? But she talked about when women were in university. And the reason that women didn't pursue higher education or graduate studies or really high stress jobs, this was her theory. She didn't really have much data. She did surveys of people, so there was data, but it was that whenever girls, or young ladies in this case, started feeling anxious because learning is hard, learning is uncomfortable, they'd think they were doing something wrong, and so they'd stop. And when I read that, when I was in university, I was like, I'm going to watch that in myself. And that sent me, I had an undiagnosed trauma condition even then. So I went too far the other way and broke a lot of things because I couldn't tell the difference between healthy anxiety and a trauma response. And that is where I think a lot of men get caught up, because a trauma response you cannot just push through. Healthy anxiety is important to be afraid, do it anyway, because that's how you get those wins. That's how you build your sense of self-concept and self-worth. A trauma response is something you can't push through. So, step one, make sure your anxiety is not a trauma response. If it's a trauma response, validate that response. That's not something you can just push through. You have to find a way to work with it. You can compensate for that. You can find other methods, but if you just keep trying to push through it, you will re-traumatize yourself. It will get worse. Learn from my mistakes. That's one. But two, the idea, and this is where putting women up on pedestals is so bad for everybody. Men are taught to put women up on pedestals, often by other women in their lives. And it's wrong. It's so wrong. Oh, Lord. Yeah, she's pretty, she's feminine, she smells good, you like the way she giggles. She's still a person, right? It takes practice to be around really attractive people without feeling inferior. And, try to keep your shit together when you find somebody just so shiny. Again, takes work, takes skill, takes practice. Part of it I found for me is assuming when I, talk to a lot of very attractive women, and some really attractive men. I have more experience with very attractive women, but yeah, everybody has something they're insecure about. Everyone has something they think is just so obvious to everyone. Everybody can see it's written all over their face, right? And it's not. Everybody is hiding some sort of awkwardness or insecurity. If you consider that, it makes it so much easier. I mean, for me, I have the benefit of being an interviewer who also gets interviewed. So I've been on both sides of it. And I know going into an interview, I'm nervous. And I keep that in mind when I'm interviewing someone. I always try to, put them at ease because you get better content. I make sure there's ground rules, anything they want to ask beforehand. That's all done so that people feel comfortable. Because I know what it's like to be in their shoes. But it's also, I permit myself to have my own awkwardness. Like, this guy I'm talking to is getting into like YouTube stuff, and he had an interview where there was an awkward moment. And it freaked him out. And I watched it, and it was just, sometimes it happens, right? Sometimes there's a bad connection. Sometimes a joke doesn't land. Sometimes in trying to formulate a follow-up question, you trip all over your own tongue. Lovely image, yes. You just stumble. It happens to everyone. And I've talked about this before, one of the worst interviews I ever did was with Richard Garriott. If I could get a do-over on that one, holy shit, I would love to, because I was just in my mind, it's Richard Garriott, it's Richard Garriott, it's Richard Garriott, it's Richard Garriott. And I was starstruck. It was a shitty interview. Worst I've ever done, probably. Well, worst I'd ever done that was my fault. But he was great. It was still a very interesting interview because he's just so joyous and fun, and he was in character, and it was he was doing tabula rasa, so he was General British instead of Lord British, and I admit that kind of threw me as well. But it's funny, and I can use it to assure other people we all have those moments. And that involves a certain amount of confidence. But it doesn't start with confidence. It starts with humility. It starts with the awareness that you are human and you are going to be awkward at times. And the number of awkward experiences I have had with cosplay, for instance. I tell that story at the hotel in Chicago where there's a kids' beauty pageant going on, and I was standing there with a little cowboy and like a little princess girl, and it's like, yeah, I'm big for my age, glare daggers. I thought it was funny. I remember this one time, it was a convention. I was in an elevator with Jonathan Frakes, and I was dressed as Ivy Valentine. And you could tell the poor bugger was trying not to look, and he didn't know where not to look because there were mirrors in the elevator. So, he's trying to, and as he's getting out of the elevator, it's kind of nice costume. It was awkward, but he was cool about it. It's like, I love that dude now. Go Riker. Things that happen here and there, things that just don't gel. The more you experience, the more times you do it, the more you realize that, one, you'll live, right? You'll live. And it'll be a funny story you can use to help other people later. One of the coolest things about what I do now is I can take my stupid fuck-ups and tell them as a funny story, so that people can know I'm not asking you to do anything I haven't done. I'm not, talking from down on high. So many of these self-help people are, there's like no weakness, no weakness. Why do you want to take the advice of someone who can't admit awkwardness, insecurities, weakness, failing, so on and so forth. Nobody has it all together. When some guys go, I'm strong, no weakness, fight, warrior, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. The truth is that we all have areas we are very confident in. Talking about video games, for me. There are all areas we're completely not confident talking about. With me, that's girl world. I'm wearing a fucking Galactus shirt, people. You know, like, we all have them. And this idea that some people have perfect confidence or we're awesome in all things, it's just not so. The number of performers that are extremely shy. I mean, the one time I met Viggo Mortensen, you know, Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, and he always plays that really, really intense. He came across almost shy, and he was a little bit awkward. We had a conversation about rancid pork skewers. Yeah, I finally got to talk to Aragorn. And we talked about rotten pork. Great story. Out of context, right? But it's like, he was shy. Gilbert Gottfried, the comedian, rest in peace, off camera, very shy guy. You see it in the documentary. A lot of actors off camera, like Nathan Fillion, the nicest fucking guy in the world. Like, oh my God, if there's a guy I wish all the success to, that dude. He's so nice. But he's a shining example of someone who's charming because he embraces his awkwardness. The other one I really got that vibe off of was Shawn Ashmore. He was a prince of a guy in person, but he just kind of goes into, yeah, this is weird and this is really awkward. Am I standing too close to you? Am I not standing close? Like, just the people who are the most charming, the most smooth are not the ones that aren't awkward. They're the people that embrace the awkward. And it's kind of awesome when these guys are my height, especially when I used to wear heels. So, you know, I was about 5'9" in heels. And so I was like, I realized sometimes check to see how tall the guy was. So flat shoes that shoot. Sometimes I just go, fuck it. And I take my shoes off and he kind of laugh and go, thanks. And, you know, it's like, we all sort of knew this is stupid, but it matters. And that's the thing about doing performing. That's the thing about doing acting. The stuff you have to make seem super glamorous is some of the most awkward shit. Any of those sort of intimate scenes. Oh my God. Not only is it like, people are watching this, but the angles to make it look pretty are, the worst is anything feminine coded where you're lying down. Guys, you'll notice they tend to prop them up. So they're sitting up in bed in a way nobody sits up in bed when you're supposed to be lying down. But with women, because they wanna elongate that, they'll put this fucking bolster under your back and you're trying to be all like, keep your neck so it's not that, you know, like, which fucking hurts. And then you have to look alert. It's the most unnatural shit out there. And that's why a lot of actors are really good at making people feel comfortable, because they know what it's like to have been in those uncomfortable places. I mean, you do any prosthetics and people are shoving goop in places you don't want to think about goop going. If you do any modeling, people are handling you in ways that are normally invasive, and it's the job. And so you learn to make jokes, even being wired with a mic. You know, a guy you don't know is touching you around here, and everybody's got to be kind of cool about it. This is why these people we look to be sort of icons of charm got that way. They lean into the awkwardness because it's part of the job. And so we've got good at an extent at doing it. But red carpets are terrifying. Media junkets are terrifying. you feel so repetitive and boring because you're saying the same shit again and again and again and again. And oh God, don't fuck up the talking point. Oh God, oh God, oh God, that PR person who really doesn't like me is glaring at me. Can they please just look the other way? Oh God, hey! You know, everybody has the anxiety thing going on in their head. And I think that when you embrace that and you know other people are going through it, it makes it easier to do it yourself. And this is only the beginning of the conversation. I want your questions on this so I can follow up because it can go in a bunch of different places and the video is 25 minutes long. I'm trying to not do the 40-minute things anymore because it makes the upload a nightmare. So this is the beginning. Awkward. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Coffee.com/LeannaK for a one-time Leanna Care session for people who can't afford it. And then go fund me for the 90. Wait, yeah. Links all in the description box. The help support thing has gotten awkward. Theme of the episode. Awesome, awesome. Thanks for watching Manly Mondays. Looking forward to your comments.